My mom told me not to talk to strangers on the internet, but I'm glad I didn't listen. We are the Certified Nunas, your sisters in the love of Asian entertainment.
Hi, I'm Amanda.
I'm Jessie.
I'm Natalia.
And I'm Sky.
And it's someone's birthday. It's someone's birthday. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Jessie. Woo! It's actually, okay, like, from the day we recorded this was like a couple days ago. But, like, if you're a long-time listener of this podcast, you know that when it's someone's birthday, they get to pick all by themselves with absolutely no one can argue.
No help.
No help. Yeah, no help. No one can argue about it. No one gets to say, "Oh, I don't want to do that." They get to pick their own topic.
And we are so nice to each other. We have not sabotaged each other.
We joke sometimes in like in our private chats, like we joke about sabotaging by picking something awful that's like real niche that only one of us like, but we don't do it. We always try to pick something that like we think other people will enjoy as well. And so this month being Jeff's birthday, she decided to pick something wonderful. And I'm okay, as we were discussing last week, you probably know what it is because
probably
the title of the episode you just clicked on. But that's right, we're gonna be talking about Hikaru Utada, a wonderful singer of Japanese origin. And you know what, Jessie? Take it away!
I will. I'm glad to be back. It's been a couple.
It has been
on the.
It has been a while.
Too. It's been this. Yeah, work has been crazy. So, in the interest of our time here, Utada Hikaru is a very accomplished singer and very popular in Japan, and also has reached international success, especially with some of their work with like the video game Kingdom Hearts and Evangelion, that sort of thing. So I'm doing a like very abridged introduction into who they are and their career. So we're not here for a very long time because we could
go on for
hours.
Yeah, but we won't.
And I'm not going to do that to you all. You can take this little bit of knowledge if you've never heard of them before and go research your own. So I just want to put that out there because I know that there will probably be someone who is much more of a massive fan than I am and knows some stuff and will be very sad.
The most diehard fans going to be so excited to click this. But
yes,
listen, diehard fans, we love you. But this is for the people, and please stay and listen. But this is more for people who may not be familiar. We're doing a little précis version,
Yes. And the reason I picked Utada is because I've been a fan of them for a very long time, since high school, which they were also in high school when they started their career. I remember the first music video I ever saw from them was Automatic, and I downloaded it on this site where the Sleepy site, and it took like 7 hours to download.
Oh god!
Oh my god!
But then
the limey days we used to spend, on the wires, as it were.
This was back in 99, 2000. Yeah. So there was really no other option. There was YouTube wasn't a thing. iTunes, I think maybe was starting to be a thing, but it definitely wasn't a thing when I first got into Utada, and you had to do some sketchy things at that time. So, but they've been in my life for a very long time. So I'm very excited to at least give people some context as to who they are, and so then maybe you can pick up their music because I think they're great. So a quick bio breakdown. Utada actually, they're Japanese, but they were born here in the US. So they kind of live in this world of kind of being bilingual and shifting between Japan and the US. So they're kind of in that kind of gray area of who they are as a person and where they kind of lay claims. there was absolutely no way Utada was going to live on this planet and not be in the music business, based on who their parents are. Their father was a record producer, Utada Terrazane, and their mother is a famous Inca singer. And Inca is like a traditional Japanese music style, kind of like ballady, like more folk ballady. And her name was Fuji Kaiko. So she came into this world with two like massive music powerhouses as her family, and because of that, was always in the recording sessions with the parents. They were always doing stuff. Started like writing music and lyrics early on into their childhood. They even talk about it in a lot of like interviews where it was like a family business, and that's Utada just got into the family business is what they always say about it. But their kind of like first introduction into the producing world was at age 10, when they formed a duo with their mother, and it was named U3, and it's basically just her in the background like singing and being sweet and very, very young. And from that, they signed on a record contract with Toshiba EMI in 1996 at the age of 13, where Utada recorded a full English album, which was never really released. It was released to like kind of like Music Insiders, but something went on with the label. So like I think that's why it didn't get released. Like it was part like the label was like merging into another label or something, and kind of just got like shoved into a corner, and so like it never really went anywhere because of that. I think later on it was released in Japan, but it was a full English album, so yeah, you can find like one music video from this time, and so like you can find stuff, it's just very hard. But it wasn't until the release of First Love, which was their full Japanese album, which is kind of like what they like consider as their debut album. It was like their first like introduction into the music scene, and it was a commercial hit. Like it just won all these awards, sold over 7 million copies in Japan, and additional 3 million internationally. Which
back then,
that's it.
Back then,
like
that's just
Like I know that like today, like with how international everything is in the music industry, that doesn't seem that impressive. But trust me, that's incredibly unheard of.
I direct you to what I talked about earlier. iTunes wasn't a thing. Like we barely had like music sharing. Like the internet was in its like very early stages, especially in terms of like sharing things like that. Like we didn't have like YouTube videos. We had like flash videos that took hours or even days to load. Like
it was a rough time.
This is how like expansive it was.
And digital music really wasn't a thing yet. Realistic,
absolutely.
Like digital music, everything was very physical. Like that's what it was.
I mean, when you had digital music, it was because you had a CD that you ripped onto your computer, and then maybe people were sharing those things.
Those tiny little MP3 players, like the little
Well, even like especially like when you're talking about like someone who is a Japanese artist and you're like getting these international pieces. I remember like even like at the very early stages of iTunes, if I were to get Japanese music, I had to go through hoops to get it. Like I literally had to buy a gift card. I had to set my address as a Japanese address and pay with the like iTunes gift card under that like Japanese address to get a like Japanese download.
Back in the high school days, I had a hookup. There was a group of nerdy fellas that I was acquainted with, and one of whom was trying to date me, and he had good internet. I didn't have good internet. And so he would get me my anime and my J-pop and all that. That's how I got the Japanese music. He would burn it onto CDs for me.
Yes.
Well, so yeah, burned CDs, like, even I remember even in high school later on, like, so a few years after around this time, like, it still was burned CDs were still kind of the main way people would share stuff. Like, if you weren't online ripping it yourself.
Yeah, like I had a friend in college who was the only one with a computer and internet, and she would take like a list from everybody of like the songs they wanted and set a download list overnight. And
I had my best friend was like that. They had the best internet, so they could do that.
Not all heroes have capes.
It's true. And like to like date ourselves a little further, iPods were only really a thing when I was in like college. Like
like
absolutely.
it was later.
Yeah. We were just doing CDs. I mean, like, my first Utada CD was purchased at an anime festival, like a con. Like, and that's the only way I bought it was because the convention came in and, like, you know, you had, like, people who were importing it and doing, you know, setting up shop. And so, like, that's when I bought the first CD.
And so it was an official...
It was an official CD, yeah. So it was, like, kind of, like, the first time. It was the Deep River album. And, like... it was just like, oh, now I actually have some of their music. It's not just like
I remember like the only thing that I could ever easily get on actual like physical CD would be like very popular anime OSTs. Like I had the Ghost in the Shell OST because that was a very popular anime.
Did you get it at FYE? Because FYE was the only place here in the States that was doing any sort of anime stuff.
My sister lived in the States at the time, so she would buy them for me wherever in Philadelphia had them, and then would mail them back to me. So it was a rough time, okay? Those
are rough times. I know we always keep on seeing those memes, and people are like, "Oh, I hate that! Like, so like Netflix is taking off my anime," and I'm like, "Girl,
no!"
I literally had to go on message boards and get someone to mail me a VHS tape of a fan sub to watch anime.
Just when they were like, "Oh, you know, the cheaper Netflix is only going to be in 720p." I'm like, 720p? That's fucking luxury. I was watching in 144, my guy.
Like those anime music videos, like the fan music videos, you're watching them on like a screen that's like 2x2.
Oh, rough. It was a rough time.
Yes. Anyways, going it back to Utada. By the release of that album, Deep River, Utada became the only singer or group in Japanese music history to have 3 consecutive albums surpass the 3 million mark and became the 8th best-selling album of all in Japan.
And they were 16 at this point, right?
For Deep River, they were...
Or were they like
probably about 8. Because it was their third album, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
But they like when they were around 15 when that first like the First Love album came out. It around that time is when that became super popular immediately. And Utada is credited, I guess, kind of like part of that like era of like Japanese pop being really big and starting to be like a very big like influence onto the music industry, which I think is like kind of like fascinating. If you read up about her or their mother, they like were part of like this renaissance of Enka singers and was kind of like doing more like contemporary Enka, however that is. And so it was kind of like this like nice kind of like parallel to that because Utada was sitting there like really getting into the scene. And I mean, this is like around the time that like Boa was also getting big too. So if you're trying to like figure out where like the timeline is, it's Boa, Britney Spears is big at this time. So like the female pop like type of like singer was huge back then. So that's a little bit of like kind of like the brief background of the bio. I wanted to like briefly mention something that happened or something that came out within the past couple of years that is very much tied to Utada's identity now, and is about them coming out as non-binary and being one of the like few or even like the only Japanese artist or entertainment person who's talked about coming out this way. So in 2021, they released a statement that they decided to come out as non-binary. And I saw this interview that they did with Zane Lowe at Apple Music.
It was a good interview.
Yeah, it's a really good interview. I really liked what they said about this. And this is, when I came across the term non-binary for the first time, it wasn't a question of am I or am I not? I was like, whoa, where was this word my whole life? Hello, we finally meet. It was like a gift. They haven't talked a lot about it past that point because it's very new, and it was kind of more of like, oh, I've just like finally found the words to like feel how I'm feeling. But it's really significant because Utada is such a huge person in Japan, and being able to just kind of willingly come out. And there's some interviews where they talk about how they're like, you know, like there are people who can't do it because of like their family or their jobs or something. And I'm like, I'm just this. Like that's all I am. So maybe I can just like talk about it and be the one to like constantly talking about it, because at the end of the day, what's going to happen? They're not going to listen to my music. Oh no!
I assure you, they still are. You know, like
at this point, I think Utada can like never work a day in their life again and be completely fine with the money that they have. Yeah. But also, they don't make music for anyone but themselves. So it's been this kind of like thing with them, how they've come out, and I think it's really awesome, and it kind of really great step forward.
And you know, there always needs to be the first person to like publicly like be like, look, I'm exactly the same person I was before you knew this about me. And then it like, you know, people who are, you know, struggling with the same situation can see like, oh, there's someone who is successful and kind and, you know, well beloved that is like me. And so I don't have to feel ashamed of who I am, you know? I love it.
Well, and in that interview, it was also kind of mentioned that it's not even simply that there weren't any other people in the entertainment industry that have identified as that. It's even, like, as far as they're concerned, they haven't noticed that anyone on the Japanese side of things even discuss, like, it's not something that even really gets discussed all that much. So, like, that they kind of they didn't talk a lot about like, oh, I feel all this responsibility, but they did say there was a level of being very aware that like starting that conversation, even much less being the first person in the entertainment industry to identify like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think especially because they didn't even know about it. And so once they figured out that like there was kind of like this like definition and term for what they had been feeling throughout their entire life, it was kind of like it brought solace to the kind of the questions. And I think if you like follow their music, you can kind of see where it is. And they've like talked about this before in regards to like kind of being multilingual and how like in Japan they're one way and in America they're other. And I think that was really kind of them kind of sensing that kind of like, I don't want to be either. I just kind of want to be at a certain point. And this also kind of like ties back to in the very beginning during First Love, Utada wrote all their music and they threw in a bunch of like English words into the lyrics, and they didn't do it because it was, you know, like
trendy,
like it wasn't trendy at all, like nobody was doing that, but also like it wasn't like a try to grab international audiences. It was purely because that's how they specifically spoke. When they spoke, they did this like mashup of Japanese and English because they were fluent in both and were, you know, living and studying school in both countries. And so it was very like natural to them. And I think that like this entire time, it's kind of been like a accumulation of things like kind of hinting towards it and like hinting towards what they identify with. And I think it's really kind of like amazing to be able to see them finally figure it out too and be themselves.
I must say I got a little bit of a like side chuckle when I was just like looking through it, and I just, you know, went onto the, you know, as you always do when you first start the research for anything, you check out the Wikipedia article about it. And And this set, like, I even sent this guy, and I was like, "Good gracious!" The sentence was, "Utada announced her non-binary gender identity, becoming one of the first public figures in Japan to self-identify." I was like, "Wait a minute! But then later on, right down, if you scroll all the way to the bottom of this incredibly long article.
Yeah, it's so long.
It says, in the notes section, it says, Utada uses she, her, and they, them pronouns. This article used she, her pronouns for consistency. And I was like,
Yeah.
well, at least they put a note. Otherwise, this is an absurd sentence to write.
Yeah. I'm sure they're still trying to like figure that out, and I don't think anybody should be rushed into like figuring out what pronouns they're going to identify as. But they did. There is an Instagram post that Utada talked about, like where it was like a specific thing was in the suffix if like you're called like Miss Hikaru or Mrs. and decided that MX was more like what they wanted to be, and it was kind of like more of like it's really not about the exact pronouns. It's about being able to feel like anything, like just feel like I'm me, essentially.
And there was also another time that they were discussing just their name and how their name is kind of more of a masculine name than a typically feminine Japanese name.
Yeah.
So, and they've always liked that about their name, and they thought that was a really good extension of themselves. They always identified well with their name.
Yes,
so they never felt the desire to change it or anything.
Because
they like
they
that's good.
focused like a lot of their career. It's just been Utada, which it's their last name, like it's their family name too, so like that's a little bit of like a difference in how they're represented.
Which, be aware if you're going and looking for them on Spotify. I thought I had listened to everything, and there was like 10 albums, and I listened to so much, and then it was like I went to watch the video list, and I was like, I have never heard these songs, and then I went and looked, and oh no, they're in Spotify twice.
Yeah,
classic.
This is also
because of the Western and the Eastern.
Yeah, especially like what I found with especially like Japanese names, the media hasn't like all gotten together and figured out whether they're going to do it westernized or not. So it literally it's a free for all. Every like article could be completely different. And I think what's like makes it a little bit challenging for you as like a non-Japanese person reading all this stuff is that it's not like, I think Korean makes it easy because most of the time they do it correctly where it's the last name first. But the last names are all roughly the same in Korean, so like you see the same names all the time. You're like, that's definitely the last name, but you can't do that with Japanese that much. I mean, there are like names, like first names that are very common. Like if you see Sora a lot, you're gonna oh, that's the first name. But like it does make it a little bit challenging when you're trying to like research these Japanese artists, because it's like, which one is it? Like, and
you don't
who's
know
doing
if the
who?
person you're reading wrote it properly or wrote it the other way. Did they write it Americanized or did they write it? And you're like, I don't know what your name is. I'm sorry.
It's
really strange that the media hasn't like come to a conclusion with this.
Yeah, it's really
at this
bizarre.
point in the game.
Like, and I have like there's a lot of times like I get worried that I'm gonna like if I'm looking for people that I'm switching their names. Like so like if I'm like talking about a bunch of different people, like half of them I talk about them their first name and their last name, and then their last name and their first name, and I'm always like, I need someone that like Wikipedia sometimes, so I've like noticed they've stopped kind of doing it. They will say the family name, like they'll say family name and then the last name. And then My Drama List kind of does, but I think it's only on the app you see it. I can't remember. So it's very hard, and I'm always like,
even when you're being careful, it's still very difficult.
Like, I'm so bad at this, and I'm already bad at names no matter what.
Yeah,
it just like ruins me.
I'm bad at English names, so don't throw other language in, and it gets.
I'm so bad at names that I've been familiar with them for years, and I still have to look up how to spell their name because I'm like, oh, which one is it again? Like,
it's terrible.
Yikes.
Anyways, so we're gonna pivot now because I'm probably sure you all want to know the music style of Utada.
Because I know I do.
Don't worry, I will tell you. Well, so officially, I think if you like look at a lot of like things, Utada is kind of compared to J-pop, and in almost every interview they've ever done in their entire life, they keep on going, I don't know what J-pop is. I don't know what J-pop is. It's like a constant thing they're talking about all the time. They're like, I don't know what J-pop is. I'm just doing the music that I like to do. And so like they're usually credited as J-pop, but it's kind of like mostly their music falls in with like R&B and electronica and kind of dance club. Like that's where you're gonna, if you're looking for kind of like what Utada is as a musical genre, that's where they live. And sometimes they do a little bit more ballads, because like First Love or Hatsukoi off of the First Love album is a ballad, and they have ballads and they have kind of more stuff that's like a little bit more poppy and like would be something you would consider as like possibly J-pop. But it's like, especially with a lot of their albums, they kind of focus more on kind of like the R&B electronica, because they also do a lot of like remixes on their songs as well. So there's a lot of like club remixes.
It's J-pop in the same sense that for some reason both Zico and Stacy are both considered K-pop.
Yes, kind of more of like,
you know what I mean?
We're
like,
talking about J-pop is because it's popular person
from Japan. It's popular music that is Japanese. J-pop.
So, but it is kind of like funny. I had just like massive list of just like random things, because Utada is very easy to find interviews of because they know English, so you can always find like English things, and they've done a couple of English albums, so they've promoted a lot here. And it was just like constantly people would be like, J-pop, like, I don't know what J-pop is. Stop
like,
asking me this question.
You say so.
Well, and what's kind of extra funny about that is how like they're put on this pedestal as like, you know, this pillar of J-pop, and they'll be like, not simply even what is J-pop, but they're like, I don't listen to other like I don't so I'm not even influenced by whatever you're discussing.
I know nothing.
Like during like what was it, 2004, they did the Exodus album, which is their kind of like first official English album that actually got released to people. And so they did a ton of press with that, and they were constantly going on to like radio shows and stuff, and like everybody was comparing them to Britney Spears, and you could see like it was like constant, and Utada's very like just like very clinical in her responses sometimes. Or their responses
from a young age, and they did not mince words with stuff like that.
And so it's funny because they're trying really hard, because they respect Britney Spears, but they're like, we're not the same. Like, we're not doing the same music at all, which is like very clear. They're not doing the same music at all. You listen to them, and they were trying to like clarify that. And then it was like, you could tell that they were kind of like picking up, like maybe what people are kind of referring to is how the level of stardom, where it's like Britney Spears, it like everybody knows who they are, whether they listen to their music.
It was a point of
and at that time, Utada, well, she still is, but like at the time they were that huge of a person, so like they were at the level, especially when you went to Japan, people would know who they were.
And I think how young they were as well, right? Like comparing that to Britney Spears. That Britney Spears rose meteorically at a young age, and so did Utada. So
and exactly at the same time too.
It's a reasonable comparison to make, but it was like all the time, like every interview I watched like 3 or 4 in a row, and I was like, and it was like
constant.
They had the J-pop conversation and the Britney Spears conversation.
Yes, it was constant. So just like spiraling, and they're like, they're trying like really hard, because they were like trying to not be like, I don't like Britney Spears, because it's clearly that they're not. They're just like, I don't want you to think that I'm Britney Spears, and then you listen to my music and you're like, well, I was conned. This is not Britney Spears music at all. Like,
well, and also when you're making those comparisons, especially from an American perspective, it comes across like you're saying you're the Japanese Britney Spears. And at one point Utada was like, Yes, I remember watching Britney Spears rise to fame and thinking, wow, her career is very much like mine already is. You know, and you were like, no, Britney
Yes.
Spears is the American, like the white Utada, not the other. I was here first. Like, you know,
Typical.
I'm trying not to be rude about it, but also
even like such different backgrounds too, and that doesn't mean that like one artist is better than the other, but the backgrounds are so entirely different, and that's fine. Or even the way they perform, entirely different.
Yes.
Well, yeah,
both great artists, but like
listen, we love Britney Spears up in here.
She can dance, like she is a dancer, and I'm.
Yeah, like I'm
do that
here.
Like, what I do.
Listen, we love Britney Spears here. We think that she's fantastic. No, just not the same. Not the same. It's a different vibe all entirely.
But of course, when you're also talking within the patriarchy, like
classic.
Oh, you're a young female-born person.
Yeah, I gotta compare to other people.
Yep.
And it was just like,
I don't think my eyes
doing stuff on my own.
further enough back in my head. Entertainment media.
Some of like their influences in music, because they kind of like vary in drastically in what they really love. It's anywhere from someone like Mary J. Blige to Metallica to Prince to Kate Bush. And I think you can kind of see those influences, especially like Mary J. Blige in Utada's work. And it's kind of like what is defining to what they kind of put out and how they work. And they've also done a lot of collabs with a bunch of different people. It's like pretty clear that like anybody in the music industry is kind of clamoring to work with them. Like it's you know, they're big enough that like people want to be working with them, so they've worked with a ton of different producers the very earlier stages of their career. Their dad was working on stuff. Utada is very, very clear in that they want to be the ones writing stuff too, so they're very like picky about that because they want the music to be about them, and they don't see that it can be if they are not part of that process. But they've worked with people like Skrillex, Gina Ringo, Timberland, a bunch of different R&B artists in America and producers and that sort of thing. And yeah, it's a legacy of who they have worked with. They have 11 studio albums, 3 in English, 4 compilation albums, and 1 live album under their name, plus several singles and kind of like the smaller albums. They've also done a lot of different collabs with a bunch of different people, so you find them in a lot of different places. And one of the places where you will find them, which is part of the reason why they're so successful here in like America and like in the international spaces, is because of their work on Kingdom Hearts.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what Kingdom Hearts is, it's this little game. Like I don't think anybody has heard of it.
A little indie game, you know, just a little indie game made by little indie studios. Don't worry about it.
It's Disney. They were asked to do the Japanese version of the release of Kingdom Hearts by one of the creators of the game, and the creator was talking about how specifically they wanted Utada to be the one to write this song and perform this song because they could see nobody else doing it. So when that was released, that got really big. A lot of people, like the public, really liked that song. It's called Hikari. In the game, it's like the club version of it. It's not the one that's like released on the Deep Love album. But then they were asked to do the English version for the English release of the game, which they ended up doing, and it was a little bit different than a lot of people do with the kind of like making like the English version of whatever their like main language was. And they actually spent some time working on it, and if you like read the lyrics to both of the songs, they're completely different, and they've also changed up a bunch of different stuff on the, well, not a bunch of different stuff, but like there's a good amount of like musical changes between the two. And so like Utada very clearly wanted to make this not just we're translating the words from Japanese to fit into the English one. It was, we're making that song and kind of like keeping the essence, but it's going to be an English song, and it was like kind of completely produced. And it was, it did really well. A lot of people know Utada because of this song. The Japanese one became their 7th single to debut at number 1 on the Oricon singles charts. There's a Guinness World Record like attached to the song. Like they've gone on to create different versions of the song as well, and keep on writing songs for Kingdom Hearts OSTs. They've also done, I said, like a bunch of different stuff with like Evangelion 2. They did a couple of like songs for some of the movies. Evangelion, if you watch the TV series, they do a version of Fly Me to the Moon by different people on the ending credits, and Utada did one of those. So that's kind of where they're like, their international thing started to really pick up as Kingdom Hearts.
So my husband was asking us like, well, what are you doing this week for the podcast? And I was like, oh, we're doing Hikaru Utada. And he's like, oh, who's that? I'm like, oh, no, you know who it is. And he's like, no. I'm like, it's a Japanese, like, they're a Japanese singer. Like you've heard them. And he's like, I don't know, it doesn't sound familiar. And then I was like, no, honey. When you walk away, you can hear. Yeah, he was like, oh, okay, yes, I am familiar. I am familiar with that. Yes. I was like, we all are.
Yeah, we all are. So to go back to their albums, I just want to like talk a little bit about like some of their like main selling points, because I think like it's incredible how much they have done with their music and how like influential it is in Japanese music history. So when we talked about the First Love album, which is their very first album that like was fully Japanese, fully shown to the public, it became the highest selling album in Japan's history, ranking them 5th in the top 100 artists of the 20th century by Tokyo Hot 100 at that time. Their first debut album when they were like 15. Their second album, Distance, and became best-selling album of the year. So then when Deep River came out, it sold over 3 million copies, making Utada the only singer in Japanese history to have 3 consecutive albums past the 3 million mark. It was also the 8th best-selling album of all time in Japan. They have a singles album that came out in 2004, and it became the best-selling album that year and reached number 1 4 times, making it the first compilation album to reach number 1 in 26 years by a female artist.
Wow.
And by the end of 2000s, they were one of the most top-selling artists of all time, with over 50 million records sold, 12 singles reaching number 1 on Oricon, and 6 of their albums releasing as the highest-selling albums in Japan.
It's like, it's mind-boggling, really, at this point.
Absolutely. Obviously, they've won a ton of different awards. I'm not going to list all of them, but like a little like sprinkling. They won 39 Japan Gold Disc Awards, 3rd most out of any artist in the event's history. They've won 5 Japan Record Awards, 6 MTV Video Music Awards from Japan, 8 Japanese record sales. They won for Asian Pop Music Awards, Billboard Japan Association of Media and Digital Arts Awards. It's like just racking up.
Like there's so many that when you go on like their Wikipedia page, they don't list them. They just have a link to another page that has
it's just
them
a scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll. And so that is kind of like a condensed version of Utada Hikaru. The only thing that I haven't mentioned, which I will mention briefly, because we kind of are doing something with this episode where we're tying it with another episode that'll be coming out sometime later. Mm-hmm. And that is tied with their song First Love, which was like, I think the 4th single off of that First Love album that was brought out, and it's kind of one of like, it's heralded as one of like the songs that people recognize Utada for, especially to kind of like general like Japanese public. It's this song. And what's so special about it, besides everybody and their mom covering it and loving it, is that it was picked up to be used as the plot device in a Japanese drama that just aired on Netflix called First Love. And so we're gonna potentially in a couple weeks tie together with like talking about that drama, but I wanted
It's all
to
coming back. It's all
talk
coming
about
back.
that. But like there is a tie-in, and if you had heard or have watched that drama, that's Utada Hikaru. You hear them a lot. Like one of the first episodes, they're playing automatic on the radio in the car. You see like billboards of them. That's who it is, and that's what the entire drama is about.
And
so
if you are a Netflix user, they also have 2 concerts on there, and I watched them both.
Oh,
one
yes.
One is an actual live concert called Laughter in the Dark, which was phenomenal.
It was beautiful.
It was phenomenal. And also had a really fun little like video with a comedian halfway through. Like, you know how when you're at a concert and they'll put on like a video so like the artist can go like change or
change
like, you know,
like, wait, drink water.
I actually laughed out loud several times because it was just so perfectly absurd. Like it starts out all serious and then takes a hard left.
And
Utada can just straight man the heck out of that. Oh,
what I sort of loved about it was that both of them, like her and the comedian who's interviewing her, were both the straight man. Like it was like a double straight man where neither of them wanted to admit that they were making jokes. And then
I'm assuming this is the one that I've seen the clip of on YouTube with the
bottle.
But it goes. So I saw the clip first before I saw the concert part. It goes. There's like 5 more levels past that. It keeps going.
Yeah,
I gotta watch that.
Like I was shocked because I laughed at the little clip that it's just the initial shock.
It's so absurd, like the initial clip. No,
but the skit continues for like 7-8 more minutes of lots of things. It's just so
amazing.
And then she has a second like live session recording that I believe was done during the pandemic with her session musicians. And she has a really nice message, or they have a really nice message at the end where they're basically like, I know we can't perform live in front of you right now, but one day, like, but it's really gorgeous, like, just. It's very chill, and you know what I really liked about it. And what I liked about the concert is that they take the time to name and thank every single one of their session musicians and their dancer and everything, like by name, like give them a little story, like, oh, this is this person, like, during the Laughter in the Dark concert, there's like a contemporary dancer. And they're like, this is the woman who taught me how to dance. She's a good friend of mine now, and I wouldn't be anywhere without her. And it's just like, it's so nice. Like, I think
that kind of speaks of what like Utada is about. I think like if you come in on a surface level and then find out about their parents, you could be like, oh well,
Nepo baby.
Like, and Utada spent their entire career just doing what they want to do, like and you can tell there's this real love for the artistry of everything, and like especially when they have been so influential and so big, they're constantly doing albums that they are like, I knew nobody was gonna like it, but I liked it, so I didn't care, I just put it out. And that speaks to the artistry and speaks to the kind of passion of just like the creation of this music. And I think that like the way they are with other people in the industry too is kind of representative of that, because they're always kind of like uplifting people and making sure that like people are represented and they really feel that like it's a collab because they're doing something like fun. It's not just a collab so that they both benefit from each other, sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just makes listening to their music even more great because it's just, you can tell it's their work.
Yeah.
They don't seem like a person that like does something just to network.
No,
like that. Like, plus they don't need to. They
like,
have
watch
been
any of her interviews. The interviews like show you.
Yeah.
You can also feel a deep love of music that comes out like in their music, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah,
Personally.
and to have that even now after being in the industry since essentially birth, but like really doing stuff since starting 10 years old and making a name for themselves so quickly and so drastically, and still kind of have this real love and real affinity for creating music.
And also seeming very down to earth.
Yes.
Like,
yes. They have,
despite the fame, the ridiculous amounts of fame.
Yeah. They have an Instagram and they're always on lives a lot. And it's just like very chill, just answering questions. And they listen to like, you know, people, and they get a lot of like people that they've worked with, or like even like people from like Kingdom Hearts or Ava, like they've gotten them, and it's purely so that they can like be an interview to them. And like and like they know that like, you know, there's a good amount of people who are just like in love with them because of these games being so popular and these animes being so popular, and they have real love for it. And they've talked about it in interviews how it was like kind of amazing that like that's what brought you in, and they're still around, and like, you know, decades later those bands are still around there. And you know, like especially it being like an international audience in a way, it's really special for them.
And I have to say, on that concert that's on Netflix, like the audience, all ages, just all types of people, just from itty bitty little ones to old peeps.
If you want to like see some fun things, search Utada at Coachella or Coachella, like when they did stuff with 88 Rising, that same time that like 21 did stuff, like the Surprise 21, like listen to the crowd when Simple and Clean comes out, and like people are just losing their minds because of it.
People were so like amazed when their name was announced, like just even at the original lineup, they couldn't believe that they were going to be there. So.
And that was the first festival they had ever performed at. Yeah. So they were really excited to be able to do that.
Which is, you know, always trying new things, you know?
Yeah.
Keep doing new stuff. It makes life interesting, you know?
Yeah. And you can tell, like, I mean,
feel like you listen to their music and they do new stuff.
They do.
Like, there's a lot of variety in there. There's a few songs that have more of like a rock and roll vibe. And then there's like that, Hymn L'Amour, and it's very sort of like jazzy, almost scat sounding, and you're like, where did that come from? Like, but you just get this sense that they're like, oh, you know, that'd be fun, I should try that.
That really is. There's one interview I saw, they were talking, I think it was, the question was like, what was your inspiration or something, and they couldn't give an answer. They're like, I literally just like one day I'll like think of a sound, and then I'll like spend 2 days looking at different languages to find that sound in a word, and then to take that word and like just snowball into it. And like, so it's like, you know, like they don't, it's just like this random thing that happens in their process of like finding new music. And
I was
just like doing whatever.
I was watching a little interview with them, and they were talking about how they find like inspiration for their songs, and they were like, "Oh, it comes from anywhere." They're like, "Sometimes I'll just hear like a weird noise, like a wow, wow, wow," and I'm like, "Yeah, I can do something with that." Like, and I'm just like, "Yeah, that's cool. That's just yeah."
I just love them. Like, really, I'm like very happy that we did this episode.
So Jessie, your first brush with their music, was it like, did you run into one of the music videos? Like, how did you?
So it was purely because I was doing like anime stuff, and it kind of like in the fandom, people start talking about people, and so like randomly
just
people,
got mentioned.
Yeah, and then so, you know, I can't even remember if it was like someone said it or like one of my friends who were part of that anime group were like, oh, Utada, and so kind of looked into that, and then they were always the thing. And then like one of the things that you do, especially at that time, was when you were going to these conventions, you were just buying things at random because it was your only chance to get your hands on stuff. So you were literally just going in blind a lot. And I think that's like what was the big thing. It was like Utada was just like, you're going in blind because you're just trying to get any sort of like of this content whatsoever. And so then it like you get like more involved with it, and then you get the album, and then like finally it becomes a thing where like you have like more attainable thing because they're on a video game that's literally playing in your living room, you know. And so that kind of like really kind of deepened that, especially, you know, like when I got into like college is when anime started to pick up a little bit more and became like a little bit more like, you know, easier to find within the United States, which then meant that like some of these like major Japanese artists, you could find their music too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I bet as YouTube started being a, you know, as time progressed within the access of digital music and music videos and things, I'm sure
God
like then you were like, yes.
God bless
I mean,
those
like that's
anime
what
music
videos.
videos. Yep. That's how you find most of your your Japanese
when you
music
had the
back in the
AMVs.
day. Those anime music videos, classic.
That was
times.
like the start of people like, you know, editing video, is making these fan edits of things with like clips of your music or like anime, and it was also like a way for you to kind of like get a glimpse of an anime to kind of know what it was before you hunted down the fan summer who was gonna get it, and you know, spending hundreds of dollars, because even when like even if you could find something that was actually produced by a studio, it was so expensive. Like you go into the CD store and you would get a DVD that had 4 episodes and it would be like $30. And this is like 2000, so we're not talking about like inflation numbers right now.
Like, $30 then was a lot of money.
That's like $120 now.
I remember.
Let's be honest.
I remember the moment. So when I decided, I was like, I wasted all my years and I could have like learned Japanese, and I still wasted them and then didn't learn Japanese. But like when I like decided, like I had that like little break in like my life when I was like, I'm gonna get back into Japanese. And I decided that since I was like teaching myself, I needed to like consume a lot of stuff. I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy some of my like old anime that I don't have like the things of, because it was like my friends had the tapes, so I didn't own them. I watched them with my friends. They had the thing, and I remember going and finding Serial Experiments Lane, which I had 1 volume of, which had 2 episodes of. So I had the first volume that had 2 episodes of this anime, and when I got it, it was like $35. And I remember finding it on Blu-ray, the entire series, for $12, and I like died. I was like, this is where we are in life.
No,
I remember when my
the
mom
progression
got us, like, one year our big gift for Christmas was she got all of us the VHS box set of the BBC Pride and Prejudice. That's 5 hours. 5 hours. It was $120 for 5 hours. You know, like a VHS, and it's insane. And now you're like, whatever, it's on Tubi for free or whatever. Like, you're like, okay.
I remember. Okay, I was dating this guy in high school, and I think looking back, the thing I liked most about him was that he owned the entirety of Slayers on DVD, the anime Slayers. And when I decided to break up with him, when I tell you, I wanted to steal that DVD set. So, but I didn't. But you know what? You know, shout out to longtime supporter of this podcast, Beth. She sent me the entire series of Slayers on DVD as a birthday present one year. So, Bet, you the real MVP.
That's really
real MVP.
No.
So, Natalia, what was it pretty much kind of the same thing? Like, you just kind of heard about the name?
Yeah, it was just sort of
Utada?
like, listen, the various mixed CDs that I would get from
friends.
they would be on there,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just so
Yeah.
so sort of like it was the Wild West, okay? It was really
It really was the Wild West.
out
I
there.
feel though at that point, I don't think if you were really into being in the anime community,
Mhm.
I don't think there was ever a time that you could have not known about Utada too, because they were that influential, even like as an American who's, nobody knows really what anime is. Kind of the same way how Boa got to be that way with Every Heart, because it was on Inuyasha and it was just like so huge. So they were like, Utada is one of those like people where you're like, okay, well, they were so popular, they definitely broke into like international spaces even before Kingdom Hearts became a thing. They just got a little bit more, like it became like a little bit more
prolific.
Like, people were like really into it, because I mean, like that game has such like a hold on everyone, and it's understandable. Like if you've ever,
it's a fun game. Like it's legitimately
really
a fun game,
and it's a bunch of different like characters, because you have like Disney characters, which are inherently like characters that people love because of their childhood, but then you also have like Final Fantasy characters, which like if you were that person who was like playing those video games, like I was, like seeing like people like Sephiroth on your screen on like a video game with like Disney
with
characters,
Mickey Mouse,
that was
like wait, whoa, hold on.
So I'm the type of person that even if I haven't consumed a type of media, if I hear enough about something, I would get curious and I would go look it up.
Yeah.
So Kingdom Hearts is an example of that for me. I've never played it. But when you go try to learn about Kingdom Hearts and Final Fantasy is also an example of that for me too. I've never played it. So when I just go read about
the lore
and
is
just
so
see
deep.
like it's so complex. So even just Kingdom Hearts, even if I just go, okay, what is Kingdom Hearts really? Like what is the plot of Kingdom Hearts?
Gotta be why Kingdom Hearts became so big, because like if you knew about the lore of the characters in that game, like it became like constant Easter eggs for you, and so you like really kind of like took like the video game and you're like, oh, I know everything about this person, even though the backstory is not going to be presented in Kingdom Hearts. Like you spent the hours on Final Fantasy VII, like the like
you're like, oh shit, like
that had to have been a thing. That had to have been a thing, like with someone who was like playing and they're like, oh my gosh, is that character? And like I think that like happens with Disney characters too. It's like like you're so much part of that fandom that this is just like really amazing to kind of constantly see these people and like characters that wouldn't be together are together in this game,
right? And I think that's why I even looked it up like years ago. I was like, what is this game? Because I'm not understanding the crossover vibe that is happening. Like I needed to understand.
Remember like ads and clips and stuff with like Goofy, but like everything was dark and Goofy
and a big key, and you're like,
people.
what's going on?
Like, what am I looking at here? Like,
and it also extends past.
And then the Keyblade thing. So it was even like, what's a Keyblade? Like I kept trying to figure that.
What's really fun is that like totally extends beyond, because now for like other games, like for example, you can get a very popular mod for Skyrim that just adds Keyblades into Skyrim. Like you can just play Skyrim with Keyblades. Why not?
So funny. Yeah.
It's just so funny when you're outside of it, but you get curious enough to be like, I want to know what this is. And you read about it and you're like, I'm still not sure I know what this is.
What I sort of love about it is like, from the outside, if you know nothing about it, you're like, oh, it's probably like, oh, a silly little Disney game. And then you start reading the deep lore. You're like, oh, Jesus, like, this is messed up. Like, God, what deranged psycho came up with the game?
It's like the kid's cool little hair and goggles and keyblade, and it's like, wow, I wasn't expecting it to go that far. Like, lots of things.
So songs. Did anybody have any like favorite
Yes.
songs or like
Yes.
songs that really stood out to them?
Yes, I have 2 favorite songs. Well,
Go,
okay,
Natalia,
I have
go.
tons of favorite songs, but 2 that I would like to mention, and one is the
Okay.
song Nishi or The Road.
Yes.
So good. And the other one is Hatsukoi, which is they're just so good. But also, I gotta say, finding the official music videos for a lot of these difficult because Japan. Okay,
Yeah.
But the music video for Bad, which just recently came out, is fantastic. But I just gotta say that red and blue lighting in that music video is fucking on point. It's so good. It's a delight.
No.
A delight. Yes. You should go watch it. You should go listen to her. Listen to them immediately.
No.
How about you, Amanda?
I really like, speaking of videos, I really like the video for You Make Me Want to Be a Man. Like, it's just wild and cool. But the song is also excellent. Like, it's so good.
No.
And like 90% of the comments under it on YouTube now are congratulations on coming out on as non-binary.
Yeah.
So,
Wholesome. We love a wholesome community, right?
Very supportive.
You know, like, okay. I really like Beautiful World. I love that hymn L'amour. Like, I love that different. I like when they're doing the different stuff, but like, yeah, everything's good. Like, I mean, it's
and there's
all
a
good.
ton of it.
And
So
it really is, even though they're always them, it is one of those people where you can be like, yeah, okay, and everybody could probably find at least one song that they'd be into. Like, there's gonna be something in there. Like, and I like the dance remixes of stuff. They have a very sort of early mid Madonna kind of vibe to them.
Yes, absolutely.
Like,
you're right. You know what?
You could really see it at the club coming up after Vogue or something. Like, you're like, oh yeah, okay, I got you.
Probably my favorite is Face My Fears. Love that song so much. But a few others I really liked were Devil Inside. Really enjoyed. Bad I liked a lot.
That is good. That's a good album too.
Yes.
Goodbye Happiness I really enjoyed watching the video of too, because it was just them sitting at their desk with these puppets and stuff. It was cute. So, but yeah, I really Face My Fears though. Like, yeah, I think I've ran into that before in the past. I was like, oh yeah, I like this song.
No. So for me, Automatic has like a kind of like very nostalgic thing for me, because every time I see it, I think of like that single chair, and I just like it just kind of like brings me back to that point in my life. So it's always going to be a very like classic thing for me. But I cannot express to you how much I loved Hikari, which is the Kingdom Hearts, you know, the Japanese version, but like the one on the album, not the like the remix stuff for Kingdom Hearts. That song, the first time I heard it, I just fell absolutely in love with it, and just it took me. It was like, that's it, this is my song. And the music video for it is so good in kind of like the representation of what like the lyrics are, and it's literally just them sitting there washing dishes. That's it the entire time. There's no like cuts or whatsoever. But like Phantome, the album is like a solid album. It's probably it is my favorite album. Like definitely. It's so good. I mean, like there is just so much, and I think especially like if you do like R&B, you're gonna squarely like what Utada like produces for most of their stuff, and I just think that they're so great, and I love them so much.
I have a random wondering, did any of Utada's music end up on that dance game that you played at the arcade?
No, the one that I played at the arcade was Korean.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
But there might be something like on DDR that they did, but like I don't know.
I can Google this.
Yeah.
I just suddenly remembered how that was a part of your past, and I forgot that you had like the Korean version, not the Japanese
Korean version. Just kind of how this all started. Yeah, so like but it was in that like literally in that squarely in that time period too. So I mean,
so like around that time you were doing that game, and that's how you're exposed to Korean music
too, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, for the most part, but you know, I was still on the anime side. I mean, like the reason we went to play that game was because we were such big anime nerds, and anime nerds would go play DDR because DDR at that time was not a video game you could play in your home. You had to go to an arcade.
Right.
Yeah.
So we went to the arcade in our town, and they did not have DDR. They had Pump It Up. So we just
Close
took what
enough.
we had.
Close
that
enough.
That was what we got, and that like.
Apparently, it's really only Simple and Clean that made it to DDR.
Okay, I can understand it.
You know what?
Yeah.
This is from my.
But I guess like
from my 5-second googling.
Besides the
but
that's songs, yeah.
I was assuming that at least that song would end up. That's why I kind of brought it up. I wondered if like Simple and Clean, like I assumed it was wrong.
Like listen, like there was a bunch of Hatsune Miku. Yeah.
No.
Jessie has been so excited to do this episode.
I like it was just really nice like being able to like research this. It was very nostalgic. It really like brought up a lot of memories of that time in my life.
Yeah.
And I know that like this time in our like entire lives, and you know, with the pandemic and stuff, a lot of people are like reminiscing about like, you know, older stuff. It was just really nice to be able to like kind of through Utada's music like relive those times, you know, like early, like in high school and, you know, college, and the memories and like just the fun things we did. I mean, like just like remembering buying that CD at Anime Festival Orlando, and then just like thinking about everything that I did at Anime Festival Orlando and how crazy it was.
Those back in the day memories.
And it just like, you know, brings up other memories about like all the apartments that I lived in Orlando. Like just, you know, it snowballed into stuff. And I actually am really like glad that I like finally decided on this, because a spoiler or like a little inside, I originally was going to do 4 Minute for this episode, because 4 Minute had been on my like list of, you know, groups to talk about, because I do love 4 Minute so very much, like to the point I even made up the music video playlist.
You know, you never know,
we might do
like,
it
next year.
Or
just sometime in general
when we need a good topic.
But
I think
like,
I can speak for all of us when I say there are no 4 Minute haters in this group.
Right.
There are no one opposed to 4 Minute here.
You don't have to twist our arm.
Oh no, please no. Oh, you're making us no. What will we do?
But there was just this moment I was like, but like Utada. We could talk
about the
about
show
Utada.
just came out.
Yeah,
and,
the show came out.
Yeah, you know.
And then like the Coachella thing, and just like they're back, and like they were kind of like more present, and they had, you know, just released, or not just released, but like the albums have been like in the recent kind of distance, and so they're kind of always present. And I was like, you know what? Especially we don't do a lot of like music outside of Korea, which mostly is because it's just Korea's easy, and it's harder to get Japanese music, especially music videos, because that's just you know, it's not our doing. But hey,
one really strange thing I will thank the pandemic for whatever reason is how it made whatever Japanese entity like unclench their fist just a little bit, and release full
and that's
music videos of things.
Like right now, I am in my Japanese renaissance or whatever, because it's just like for years, like I do know that like my love for kind of like the Japanese entertainment side is like purely because that's where I was first introduced to it, you know, and like in, you know, formative years. So that's why I always have this like strong connection to it, and it's always been there. And when I've gotten more into like Asian entertainment and stuff, like Korean stuff was just like, it was so much more easier to find, and you know, it was legal, and it was, you know, it was just like always present. So I kind of like moved to that. But like now we're kind of back into this like era of where like I can find these things. And then like Netflix is dropping like 3 or 4 dramas a month, and it's like their dramas, some of their dramas are like early 2000s dramas too, like. And so like now I'm just like, I can't get enough of it, because like I didn't have this, like I, you know, I had Korean stuff to do this on, like, you know, at that time, but like Japanese dramas were not a thing. And I think I'm just like squarely in Japanese world. I like even I joked on what was a live stream. I think it was the music live stream that I was gonna do an episode on GAC. So maybe that will happen.
Hey, who knows?
Okay, yeah.
Listen, we don't know what comes up.
But yeah,
we're always looking for new topics.
Like it definitely like pushed me into like being like, yeah, do Utada. No.
And we appreciate you doing so.
And as far as for the listeners, like if you're a longtime fan of Utada, like we would love to hear what's your favorite song, or how did you get introduced, or like what's your story? Is your story Kingdom Hearts? Is it anime? Like where did you first
hear from you,
or maybe just like first love, like the J drama? Maybe that's the first time you didn't even know that it was actually like
based on
tied as that, and this is kind of your springboard.
If you're new, if this is new, like we will have a Spotify playlist up of some of our favorite stuff, so that's an easy sort of primer to go check out and get immersed.
And Jessie made the YouTube music video.
Oh yeah, I have the music, playlist.
It's
so
extensive. Listen, but pre-warning on the YouTube. Sometimes the videos just disappear.
Yes,
that's not our doing. Sometimes they just
that was also the like problem with like Kingdom Hearts stuff too, especially because it's Disney. Which I mean, they're a little bit more aggressive. I get it. They actually have to do stuff like per copyright rules. You have to actually like defend your copyright. So I get it. They're a little bit aggressive, but like
they're a little too aggressive. Some may
they're a little too aggressive, but like also like, wouldn't it be the worst if like Disney lost their copyright because they didn't do this simple thing?
like we get it. Speaking of aggressive, we're aggressively telling you that you should listen to all of our episodes wherever you want to, because we're wherever podcasts can be found, but we're also on YouTube, and yet again aggressively suggesting we're very kind, you can do what you want.
No, we are aggressively we want more subscribers.
Subscribe to our YouTube channel, because we do live streams, very fun live streams, if I do say so myself. At least once a week usually, and so we love having people there, and we hope that you enjoy that. Anyway, if you want to support this podcast, you can go to patreon.com/certifiednewguys to become a member of the Certified Found family. That is our family on the web. They are the best. We love them. We have super fun, and they get special little badges and like extra little snippets and everything. You know how Patreon works. I get a living. You know how Patreon works. And you should also join our free-to-join Discord, where you can chat about all sorts of nonsense. Respectfully chat about all sorts of nonsense.
Yeah.
And if you want links and time codes to everything we talked about, you can go to certifiednewness.com, our website, where literally every single episode we've ever done is there, with links and time codes and all that goodness. Anyway, thank you for listening to us. Maybe, after you finish listening to us, you'll turn on some, Utada to listen to. Stay safe, wear a mask, wash your hands, and as always, keep enjoying Asian entertainment. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.